Hello. We're going to be starting in about a couple of minutes. The general announcements, cell phones, things like that. We will be posting a recording of this event afterwards. You can share with family and friends. We are hoping to get through it. If you need anything, just ask one of the ushers. We'll be starting in a couple of minutes. Thank you all very much for coming. Thank you very much, Ryan. Ryan Wyman, everybody. Well, we're here. I wish it could be under better circumstances, but hopefully we'll have as much fun as she would have wanted us to. We are here to have a good time in the name of Beth Krakower, Bobo to some, Beth to many. We have friends, family, clients. All of her clients were friends, so basically friends and family in the room. We're really excited. We hope the whole point of this was to put on a soundtrack for Beth. She spent most of her years promoting soundtracks. She loved them. She listened to them into the car everywhere. When I first moved to LA, 100 years ago at this point, I stayed with Beth, and we used to drive around Hollywood, and she would insist on only listening to soundtracks or scores. So my first impression of LA was riding around with Beth, trying to teach me everything, and also orchestral music and scoring. So I was like, wow, LA really is like the movies, you know, it's just... I'm going to be speaking throughout the night, so I won't take up too much of your time right now, but we're all here to laugh, have a nice time, enjoy ourselves. We've got friends, family. Make sure you get one of these lovely jewel cases out there. And this is Beth Krakower, A Score for Her Life. We're going to start with a former employee and friend with a small opening invocation. Brianne?
Thank you, Greco. Hi, I'm Brianne Bogle. I was Beth's assistant for almost 3 years, and a friend, even still. I can't believe that I'm up here doing this right now because I can't believe she's gone, but she's the kind of person that was just magical and will be missed very much. So in keeping with the fun of this program that they set, we decided that instead of a traditional invocation, I would read something that Beth would approve of. Lyrics from Queen. The show must go on, the show must go on, yeah. Inside my heart is breaking, my makeup may be flaking, but my smile still stays on. And I just wanted to thank Beth for being such an empowering figure in my life, and a wonderful friend and advocate for all of us. God bless you, Beth. And now I'll call up Greg.
We're going to start with Greg, who every good soundtrack starts with a good piece of music and continues throughout. So one of her dear friends and former clients and well-respected composer Greg Emerson is going to say a few words.
If I had any words, and they'd be magic words, that could undo this last week, or this last year really, I would surely use them, but I don't. So actually I'm here today to honor my friend. Beth was a magnificent woman. She was a treasure to me. And as I read a gazillion Facebook posts last week, I was struck by the fact that people who knew her, who didn't know each other, used the same words to describe her. Beth was smart, she was clever, she was wicked funny, in more ways than one. She was brilliant, she was fearless, and she was selfless. She was more interested in what she could do for you than the other way around. And I tried to distill that into a single thought. And this was really the best I could do. Beth believed and made you believe, and she made me believe, that the best is yet to come, that the road ahead is bright. And then she did everything in her power to make that be true for you. What an honor. And I will be forever grateful that our paths aligned and that I got to know her. And if you had her on your side, by the way, thank you, Aaron Collins, for that. If you had her on your side and you had her on your team, you were surrounded by as good as it gets. So I was honored to know her as a person, honored to know her as a friend, and I honor her memory today. Thank you very much. Bob, you can play your track now.
Thank you very much, Greg. Coming up next, more music, less talking, as Beth always liked it. We have the composer of Last Starfighter, one of Beth's most eclectic clients, and he's going to perform, ladies and gentlemen, Craig Saffin.
So I'm going to do a couple songs that I thought were appropriate for today. Some say that life's an illusion. Who knows what's false or what's true? That distant horizon can seem quite surprising when finally the journey is through. With all of its glories and all of its faults, it seems life is a bitter-sweet waltz. Some say the grass is much greener once you get over the fence. If that's your objective, beware of perspective. Conclusions don't always make sense. With all of its glories and all of its faults, it seems life is a bittersweet waltz. You never know what you're holding till it starts slipping away. Your best protection is show some affection to those who are with you today. With all of its glories and all of its faults, it seems life is a bittersweet waltz. I went down to the sea to see if you were sleeping, if your dreams had covered all your cares, like a ship flying 3 sheets to the wind. You might have been crazy with all the things you've been. I went down to the sea to lay beside you sleeping, and you woke and told me of your life like a ship that's been caught inside a wind. You might have been broken with all the things you've been. Goodbye. Too many faces have I to see that only one has ever been. Too many faces in the wind. I went down to the sea to hear your storytelling, and your eyes followed me around like a light that's been turning in the wind. You might have been crazy with all the things you've been. Goodbye, goodbye. Too many faces have I to see that only one has ever been. Too many faces in the wind. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Craig. I was just thinking, walking past all those instruments, how much she would have laughed if I tripped. It's the kind of sense of humor she had, that she wanted everybody to succeed, and then she wanted to laugh about it afterwards. Next up, we've got a speaker, a close, dear personal friend. Many of you know, many of you will meet Javier Garcia. He and I had the privilege of working with Beth over this past year when he came along. And as many people know, that Beth had a long fight, a long, good fight that I think most of us thought that cancer should be scared, and I think it was. So coming up next, we have Javier Garcia. He's going to be speaking words from another dear personal friend who couldn't be here today. Javs?
For Beth, by Richard Torres. This wasn't how it was supposed to turn out. See, the way that Beth and I figured out, we'd be that old, odd couple you see pop up on the local baseball stadium's Jumbotron. We'd be both married to spouses who didn't quite understand our zeal, our fanaticism for sports. So we get some sort of box seat plan, meet twice a week, in outdated old baseball gear, and spend an evening together alternating between cheering our favorite team and heckling our opponents. Two things we were exceptional at. It was baseball that kind of sort of brought us together. It was the mid-90s. I was writing for New York Newsday. I was talking to my editor when his phone rang. He picked up, listened for a few seconds, and told me, "It's Beth Krakower from Milan Records asking for you." I shrugged my shoulders, took the phone from him. Beth introduced herself, rattled off a couple articles that I had written, ego massaging that always works with writers, and invited me to a showcase spotlighting a Canadian lounge singer named James B. She informed me that the show was later in the week at some swanky club in the World Trade Center, and that drinks and foods were on the label. I played hard to get for approximately a heartbeat. "Yes, yes, and yes," I replied. She laughed after giving me all the particulars and hung up. At the event, I was escorted to the roped-off area. Turned out I was the first journalist to arrive. And who sits next to me to keep me company? Beth. The friendship was immediate. We were so at ease with each other. Click alert. It was as if we'd known each other in another life. Within 15 minutes, we had discovered we were both New York Giants fans. We both loved the NBA. And not only were we crazy Mets fans, but we both considered the 1986 World Championship team to be the greatest conglomeration of athletes the world will ever know. Yeah, I know it's an exaggeration, but it's been over 3 decades since the Mets won, so you got to give us something. Even as the club filled up and Beth and I got up to hobnob with other invited guests, we always returned to each other and resumed the conversation exactly where we had left it. After the show ended, Beth invited me to hang out with her and the band. I readily agreed, and we all ended up at some speakeasy near Gramercy Park. Here's what I remember from that late night pit stop. There were lots of vodka martinis consumed. Fred Snyder from the B-52s and James B. were standing nose to nose, screaming at each other manically, as if they were auditioning for parts of the Joker and his twin brother. Beth complaining that the Mets' upper management was alienating their fan base. I remember agreeing with her, and then I heard the phone ringing. I opened my eyes. I'm home, in bed. Still groggy. I picked up the phone. Rich, I hear. Beth, I croaked. Yeah. How did you make it home? I paused for a second and realized I had no idea. I didn't know if I took a cab, a train, or even a carriage horse. I told her this and she started to laugh. How did you get home, I asked. She didn't answer, so I pressed further. Did you get home? Here's the thing, she said. I probably did. Why probably? Well, I'm showered, dressed, and kind of just came to at work. Wait a minute. You're telling me you went home, showered, dressed, probably took a train to work, and you remember none of that? Correct, she said. And your brain is essentially waking up right now? Correct. And I'm the first call you've made? Correct. Well, I'm honored. You should be. She said before launching into another 10-minute diatribe against the Mets management. And that was that. From that phone conversation on, we were tight. It wasn't just that we were besties, companions, confidants, cheerleaders, supporters, running buddies. It's that we were maybe something you have to have Brooklyn roots to fully understand the emotional import of the word. We were pals. We fully enjoyed each other's company, whether it was at a screening or a ballpark, at a concert or a coffee shop, at a fancy restaurant or a favorite diner, at an event or a long drive, sitting in a park or in front of the television. We didn't argue, we did debate. And like a couple of native New Yorkers, at times, we debated loudly. We made a point to always try to see each other's point. And like true pals, we comfortably sit in silence. We're just happy to be in each other's presence. Even from the beginning, I appreciated every moment I spent in Beth's company. Every moment. I equally cherish every memory of her. Every memory. I thank her for her laughter and her love she brought into my life, for her kindness and generosity, for her honesty and unwavering support. I thank her for the wonderful people she introduced me to, like her amazing parents, her Dartmouth crew, her music industry friends, so many terrific folks. A special shout out to Javier, who has been kind enough to read this out loud for me. My aching heart goes out to all of you. We lost someone special indeed. Here's what keeps me going. I believe in an afterlife. I really do. I believe that when it's my time to go, I will once again see those who left too soon. I'll see my dad and we'll play handball. I'll see my uncles and aunts and we'll swap jokes over a meal. I'll see my childhood best buddy, Angelo, and we'll catch a double feature like we used to do every weekend when we were kids. I'll see my friend and Beth's friend, Tom Terrell, and go to a jazz club and hear some great music. And I'll see Beth, decked out in decades-old Met gear, holding a seat open for me in our beloved Shea Stadium. She'll ask me in her brusque tone, what took me so long? traffic. Then we'll laugh, chow down on the ice cream in those mini batting helmets, and watch the game we loved played in front of us.
This is pretty tough, isn't it? If I could ask Jeff and everyone who's accompanying him to come on stage, and I'll vamp a little, as Beth was so good at. She was a New Yorker through and through. As long as I knew her before she moved out, she loved New York, she loved the Mets, she loved the subway. But then about 5 years ago, a little longer than that, she started coming out into LA. And she liked the weather, and she liked the people, and she liked being near the composers and the record labels, and she liked it here. She enjoyed being here. She was fortunate to be surrounded by friends and family these past 2 years, but also these past 5 years. I'm now going to hand it off to one of her good friends. On a personal note, last year Jeff was honored with the Emmy Award for Best Original Score. And the announcement came out right about the first time she went into remission, and we said to each other, well, if she can get an Emmy going through all that, then you should see what she can do when she's fully healthy. So Jeff now has a few words, and she would love this.
Yeah, thanks so much. And it's really to Beth's family, who I just met. I think everybody in the room, we're just so honored to have been in the orbit of your brilliant, beautiful daughter, and our hearts go out to you. Unlike a lot of you, my story with Beth is relatively short, and I was there for the tough stuff at the end. My fondest memory of Beth, when I first really felt like I got to know her, was this woman with this beautiful smile, which is probably right behind me, when a crutch standing next to Jana Davidoff near an elevator in Krakow, Poland. And there was something about the image of this woman with a crutch, but this beautiful smile on her face. I just thought, this woman knows how to suffer. She's not a victim. And it really got my attention. And Beth and I knew each other, and by the time we started working with each other, she knew about my MS, and so she was very empathetic about that. And when she got diagnosed, which was shortly after I had actually hired her, I thought, wow, this is an enormous opportunity, not only to support her as a friend, but just to actually study her. How can she do this? Because I thought one of the privileges I did have in this past year and a half was just seeing how amazing she was at not letting her suffering define her. We're all defined in the tough parts, and Beth, we love you so much, and we're honored to have known you through sickness and health. This is an odd choice, but I dedicated it to Beth in Spain, and I want to dedicate it to her one last time. And it's a cue from a documentary about breast cancer, but it's really not about the suffering. It's a theme that I wrote when I was thinking about the wonderful women in this film, and I thought of Pedro Almodovar, one of my favorite filmmakers. He loves women, and just the way I wanted to celebrate the feminine and the spirit of women. I remember when I announced this in Spain and talked about Beth a little bit, and I looked down at the audience, and there were a bunch of women in the audience just nodding their heads. So this is a horrible disease that touches so many people, and we just pray that we beat it someday. So without further ado, I want to thank David Lowe and Corinne Subolowski and my son Henry for joining me. Thank you.
you very much. That was lovely. For those who don't know, when she was younger, Beth was a string instrumentalist. She spent many years playing. She loved all kinds of music, and that's what we're trying to do here today, is get a little bit of everything, because there was always some sort of music playing. Well, you say you can measure a person by the amount of talented people that show up after you're gone, and I think in that case, Beth is hugely successful. Our next speaker is another immensely talented human being, one of Beth's most enjoyed clients. I'm pretty sure when he won the Emmy for Best Main Title for Da Vinci Demons, I could hear her screaming all the way on the East Coast. She loved it. She loved every minute with her clients. She loved every minute helping them out. And it'll be a recurring theme of everybody who talks to. But I wanted to give space to everyone. So if you please welcome Bear McCreary to say a few words.
Hey everybody, how's it going? I'm honored to be here. I'm sad that we all have to get together under these circumstances, but I can barely follow up a performance as beautiful as the thing that we just heard, and the words that everybody else has said. Instead of simply echoing what everybody said about what an amazing person Beth was, what a force of nature she was, what a caring and heartfelt and honest and blunt person she was, I think I'm just going to tell you a little bit about how she came into my life. I did a television show called Battlestar Galactica, and around 2005 or so, I'm getting to do my first soundtrack album with La La Land Records. So I'm working with Michael Gerhardt, Matt Verbois, Ford Thaxton, and we're piecing this thing together, and I'm really excited about it. And they bring on a publicist. It is time for me to talk about Beth. And so they bring on Beth Krakower, and I'm just struck immediately at how passionate she is, how many great ideas she has. We did whatever we did, a press release or whatever, I don't even remember. All I remember is that the next year, I wanted to do a live concert. I wanted to, at the urging of my wife, who kept prodding me to do this, get a little group together and play Battlestar Season 2 live. And I started asking Beth about it. I just called her, what should I do? How does one do this? And she flew out and we talked about it, got a bunch of ideas together. And then the next year, I just wanted to do it again. So I said, Beth, I want to do it. I want to do another concert. Let's do it bigger. And after 3 years of this, where I realized we had been planning live concerts and producing videos, and we were doing events for other shows and other movies I was doing. I was talking to her every week. I remember she flew out and we were having lunch out near my place in Culver City, and I looked at her and I went, are you my publicist? Is that what this is? Because I just never even occurred to me to solidify that relationship. It was so obvious that if I had this crazy idea, that Beth was the person to call. Beth was the person to bounce ideas off of. And Beth was the person who would be there, and she was there. At every single event, she was there, making sure that the backstage was open, making sure that I had food so I wouldn't get cranky, making sure that the fan who had lost a child during birth and had been listening to my music when that happened and had emailed me, making sure that that fan got in and got to the VIP section. That was Beth. That was the kind of person that she was. And we traveled the world together. We went to Spain multiple times. We went to Italy. And as Greco said, you know, she was so thrilled when I won the Emmy, maybe even as thrilled as I was. And that was something we'd planned for years. We wanted me to win an Emmy so bad. And I remember that she told me that the first time I was ever nominated, we were in Spain at the time. So she told me I'd been nominated and that the Emmys were on the day I was getting married. So I looked at her and I was like, so what are we doing? And she's like, you're getting married. But I'll help you write a statement, just in case. Thankfully, it didn't come to that, and I got married instead. Yeah, Beth was. It's very easy for me to admit I just took for granted that she would always be here, and I took for granted that she would always be a person that I could bounce my crazy ideas off of. And when I wanted to start a record label, she helped me do that. When I wanted to do anything relating to music or even life, I could always call her. And so when she told me she was sick, I imagine, like a lot of you, I understood the stakes, but I also just felt like we had time to hash it out and that we would be laughing about it one day. And but I also admired that she worked to the end. That is something I would love to do myself. And though it makes me very sad that she's no longer here, it inspires me that she just continued to live her life the way that she wanted to and surrounded herself with the people and the art that meant a lot to her. And that is all we can, as musicians, I think, expect and hope for. And she proves to me that that's possible. So I will be forever grateful that she was in my life, that she was the first handful of people that looked at me and thought I could do a damn thing, and just gave me that jolt of enthusiasm that I think I needed at that time. So she is gone, but we have each other now, and I'm so grateful for everybody in this room, and I know that we will go on remembering her and honoring her, and I'm just thankful for the opportunity to get up here and say that to all of you. So thank you so much. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Greco.
So next up, we have John Massari. He'll come up here. He'll sit. We're going to play a piece of his music in honor of Beth. To keep up the awards and everything else, Beth proving her reach even from beyond. This Saturday, she helped Carlos She helped Carlos win a Emmy for Best Main Title Music for Godless. So even from beyond. And we found out the day she passed that after 5 years of long, hard work, Lalo Schifrin will receive an honorary Oscar this January, and that was very important to her. So next, do you want to say some words? Yeah, we're going to have John Massari. John Massari, everybody.
Hello, everybody. I am so grateful to be here, so honored to be here, and being myself a father of two very strong young ladies, I understand how it is to have a strong woman as a daughter. Beth was a good woman. She was a strong woman. She wasn't afraid of anything. But I must confess that my wife, Amy, and I have been friends with Beth more as industry event pals. And I had the honor of working with her much more recent in my career. When we would go to any of the events, one of the things we would look forward to is meeting Beth, and the way we would find her is out of the crowd would emerge this big toothy smile. And you know, I think she hung around with us because she knew that we can make her laugh. And to be with her at those events was always something we looked forward to. And sadly, we won't have this. I'm kind of going off my card. I actually rehearsed everything, but apparently I don't need to. When I got the news last week and I woke up the next day, I realized that I am alive, that we are alive, and we should be so grateful. So grateful that we work in an industry where we create music and impact people that we're never going to ever meet. And at any given time, at any moment of the day, our music is playing somewhere and moving someone and impacting someone in some way, shape, or form that we may never hear about. And Beth is going to live on in the work that she's done for us to keep that music alive for everyone. So in a way, she lives within that music. The first time I approached Beth on an actual project in a professional way, I gave her a call, and it was a very awkward call because I felt like I had gotten her in the middle of something. And I said, Beth, I have a project that I'd like you to help me with. She goes, oh, great. What's it about? Well, it's about a Jewish carpenter. And there was this pregnant pause, and I thought, oh, maybe she's not really into this. Maybe this is not the best project to bring to her. She says, you know, they're never going to stop doing sequels to that first book. Sadly, she wasn't able to work on that project. And when she got a bit better, I presented her with something that was a bit challenging, that most people said, I don't see it happening. That's not going to happen. But I told it to Beth, and she says, you know, that idea is crazy enough that I think it'll get people in the theater. And thankfully, we followed through. We did it. We had a plan. We had a strategy, and we had a very successful event thanks to her. And I will end by saying that I will miss my dear friend. I'm sure we will all miss our dear friend. And please remember, our lives here on earth are very short. Every breath we take, every morsel of food we eat, we should be very grateful for. And the music that we create be a joy in our lives so that it may be a joy for everyone in the world. We're going to be playing a piece of music from the project that she didn't help me on, but that she thought was funny. And it's somewhat of a contemplative piece. So I hope you enjoy it, and I play it in honor of Beth because it's the first professional piece that I had presented her with, and she was very encouraging with. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you very much. Thank you to all the performers who are performing tonight. Real quick, Beth would have liked this. In her jewel case that we made for her, you'll find listed at the bottom places some of Beth's favorite charities to make charitable donations in lieu of anything else. Charity, compassion was a huge part of her life, so was mentorship. The following speaker, I don't think I'm speaking out of school to say, she knew Beth for the majority of her life, and Beth considered her a daughter. She will be speaking on behalf of the Krakower family and herself. Ladies and gentlemen, Abru Hussein.
Thank you, everyone, for coming, and to the Krakower family for allowing me to speak on their behalf. For those of you who don't know me, like Greco said, my name is Abru Hussein. Beth was my mentee in the Teague Fellowship. When we first met 13 years ago, we could not have come from more different backgrounds. I was an awkward 13-year-old from a Pakistani Muslim background. And she was an energetic, successful New York City professional. And yet Beth saw something in me, and she felt that I could grow from her guidance. And our relationship blossomed way beyond the expectations of the Teague Fellowship and what a typical mentor-mentee relationship is. She was my friend, but really she grew into becoming my second mother. She and her wonderful family often became the first phone call I'd make when I needed help or when I had good news to share. Beth was someone who found joy in uplifting others, and she lived to help. She was always there to help, but it never felt like charity. There were times where Beth would be chasing me down to make sure I was on top of my responsibilities, and when I tried to procrastinate and ignore her, she'd start calling my sister to make sure she got through to me. She'd always make sure that I was on top of my stuff. And when I'd want to give up and curl into an isolated hole, Beth would dig deep and make sure she pulled me out. She was a doer, someone you could turn to with the messiest, ugliest difficulty, and she'd find a way out. Death is not just what happens to the individual, but it's about the world they leave behind. I'm still struggling to accept that I will never speak to Beth again, or nor will I ever see her. The loss of such a beautiful life cut short, and the days after today, when this event is done, will be the hardest. But even in these moments of pain, the things that are comforting and the ones that are sustaining me are the countless memories we have together and all the wisdom that she's given me. I feel honored to have known her and loved her for whatever short time it may have been. I know in moments like these, we're encouraged to share fond memories, but with Beth, it's hard to pick just one. So instead, I wanted to share a story of her resilience when fighting this battle against cancer. When Beth called me to tell me that the cancer was back, she was ready to fight to the bitter end. She'd never once asked the doctors how long she had left to live, because she'd rather go down swinging rather than to cower to any fear. She had decided when it was her time, or she was the one who would decide how much she'd have to live. She never let any doctor decide that for her. On that phone call, Beth gave me what would be one of her last bits of wisdom. She took a deep breath and told me, "Abru, just live your life." Those words still sit with me today, because even as Beth was getting ready to fight her last battle against cancer, she wanted me to know that life was worth living, and living to its fullest, because that's what she had done. In her short life, she had accomplished more than anyone who had lived 100 years. We are all witnesses to Beth's incredible life, and it's up to us to hold space for her from this day forward, and to do the work to emulate her kindness and her passion. I am eternally grateful that God sent me an angel in Beth from such a young age, and I would not be here who I am or where I've been without her hand in raising me. I want to leave you all with a quote that Beth had shared from a video when she was first re-diagnosed with cancer. It goes, "None of us get out of life alive, so be gallant, be great, be gracious, and most of all, be grateful for the opportunities we have." Thank you. I've also been asked to read a letter on behalf of Stacy Bradley and the Krakower family. When Beth was preparing for surgery a year ago, she wrote me a letter she hoped I'd never have to read in the event that things went badly. I am now responding with a letter I hoped I would never have to read, a goodbye letter to a sister who is gone much too soon. As you all know, Beth died after an almost 2-year battle with breast cancer. And I do mean battle, as Beth, being Beth, put up one hell of a fight. I used to joke with her that I almost felt bad for cancer because it was never a good idea to be on the other side of a battle with her, as she had what felt like superhuman strength and intelligence. Cancer took a hell of a lot from her, and it has now taken Beth from us. Even so, it could never take who she was, including her wicked sense of humor, as she was joking around all the way to the end. It can never take the memories she has given to us, or for so many of us, the nudge in the right direction she gave us in life. Our family has heard of a lot of stories from a lot of people about Beth in the past few days, and it's wonderful to hear how many people she has touched in different ways. We keep responding with surprise, as we didn't know that Beth had done this or Beth had done that, but really all the themes are the same. Beth loved wholeheartedly and gave everything she had to give. And she had a penchant for supporting the underdog or the fixer-upper, or who in life isn't a fixer-upper in some way or some form in life. She spent every day trying to do good for others, whether it was for her clients, whom she thought of or treated as dear friends, her friends who were her chosen family, her fur babies who were her joy, and her family of origin, to whom she had given to herself endlessly, often before anyone realized that help was needed. When Beth's cancer came back, she fought with everything she had to be around for all of us. She said that every time the pain became unbearable, she would picture herself dancing with Liam, her 11-year-old nephew, at his wedding. She continued to fight with all she had, pursuing clinical trials and alternative medicine, as she knew that traditional medicine had no answer for her. When it was clear that her battle was ending, she still willed herself to stay alive and fought until she knew our family could accept this. And once we did, she was able to go in peace. Beth packed an incredible amount of life into the time she had, traveling to more countries than my family and I combined will probably ever see in our lifetime, and doing her part and everyone else's in trying to make the world a better place. Beth leaves behind a legacy of love, friendship, and kindness that will forever be a gift to all of us. Thank you. Beth has also asked on behalf of her family that any donations be made to the FDNY Foundation and the NYC Police Foundation, given that today's event is being held on 9/11. Thanks so much, everyone.
For those who don't know, Beth was entombed this Friday at Hillside Memorial Cemetery. If you wish to go see her, she's at Hillside on Centinela with all the great luminaries, Lemonade Roy, Noel Cowher. She would have gotten a kick out of that. Ronnie Chasen. She was entombed in the Chapel of Matriarchs, which I think is very appropriate, given that she once told me that no partner but 500 children. So at that service, the rabbi told a story about David, King David's revelation that of Jacob's ladder, of on the ladder was angels and calling to heaven. And he said an angel's purpose is to sing, and that there's no better cause than to spend your life devoted to music. Beth spent her life devoted to music, but what's more, she spent her life devoted to others. So now we're going to perform by Adrian Sumter, a rendition of Jacob's Ladder.
We are climbing Jacob's ladder. We are climbing Jacob's ladder. We are climbing Jacob's ladder. We are climbing on. Every rung goes higher, higher. Every rung goes higher, higher. Every rung goes higher, higher. We are climbing on. If I stumble, will you help me? If I stumble, will you help me? If I stumble, will you stop and help me? We are climbing on. Rise, shine with joy and glory. Rise, shine with joy and glory. Rise, shine with joy and glory. We are climbing on.
Well, we're almost at the end, which is Beth's favorite part of most events. Coming up next for a few words is, I know in publicist, in the dark arts, we're not supposed to have favorites or ones we like or anything else, but to Beth, there was a few, and usually on the top of that list, there was Cliff Martinez. They were good friends, and we're honored to have him speak here today. So if Cliff will join us.
I'm going to keep it short. Beth was a real treat to know. For those of us who worked with her, she took our careers to a whole higher level. She introduced us to an alternate universe where film and television composers were regarded as artists, almost even celebrities in faraway places like Spain, Switzerland, the Netherlands, Poland. And she showed me that there were people all over the world that liked me almost as much as I do. So through Beth, I became a more accomplished world traveler and developed, I guess, a higher regard for what I do. And she almost cured me of my acute fear of public speaking. She was always pushing me out in front of increasingly larger groups of people until I almost felt comfortable about it. So literally, I wouldn't be standing here in front of you all if it wasn't for Beth. And now she's gone, but not forgotten. Beth, we all love you and miss you, and we will not forget you. That's it.
So, anybody who knew Beth knew she liked all types of music, but in her heart, she was a rocker. She was a punk, she was a mad woman. You could have seen her terrorizing around on the streets of New York City in the early 90s. I didn't think it would be appropriate. I don't think she'd like any show that didn't have some electric guitar. We couldn't think, she couldn't think of anyone better than former client and accomplished composer in his own right, and a metal god in his own right. Tyler Bates will perform a contemplation on the guitar. I think she would have really enjoyed it. So if Tyler, if you could join us.
Just wanted to say it's very interesting ruminating on this this over the past few days. You know, there's so many incredible qualities about Beth that have been stated eloquently today, so I don't need to defile the stature of so many great things said about her. But I have to say, I'm probably one of the most frustrating publicity clients ever. So I hire a publicist, but I don't actually want any. Everything makes me nervous, and I always wish the toothpaste could always be put back in the tube, but she helped me through a lot. And actually, in the course of my last few years, I've not always been in control of how I'm represented as far as publicist is concerned, but even when Beth was not my active publicist at times, she actually would refer a ton of interesting opportunities to me through people I was working with, and I think that says a lot about her character. She was fantastic in every right, courageous in every right, and a great example of how to live a life instead of, most of us, we contemplate death, but before she was sick, she was not even thinking about endless amounts of time. She was about making the most of every day, and I think that that's something that's impacted everybody who's known her, and I ascribe to that daily. I have only played one memorial. That was my mother, and she was very young when she died, and it's pretty heavy stuff when you start thinking about it, but I think we can all turn this shitty date of September 11th around and really forever consider this a celebration of life. And hopefully every year, if we're still here, we can re-examine what we're doing and try and, just get a little bit closer to the person we want to be and the life we want to live, and let go of some of the distractions that keep us from getting there. So if you could dim down the lights, I'd really just like for us to take 3 minutes or so and just kind of think and feel Beth, and try and smile. We need to make the best of our time today. I have no idea what I'm about to play, so we'll see what happens. Torturing me. The photos are great. Let's keep those going.
All right, we have one final speaker, and then I'll say a few words. It's impressive for middle of the day in Hollywood on a Tuesday to show how many people come out. Our final speaker is one of Beth's best friends in the world. I think everyone knows him in one way or another. Nobody knows what he's going to say, so it will be exciting, which is exactly the way she would have wanted it. Ladies and gentlemen, Ford Thaxton.
The following eulogy will be more than likely NC-17, so if anyone out there might be offended by that, don't care. Okay, let's start out with this. Last week, I had to say the hardest thing I've had to say in recent memory. Beth Krakower died. Beth Krakower was one of my best friends in the world. She was part of kind of a family over at my company, BSX, of Mark Banning, Yvette Banning, Randall Larson, James and Annie Nilsson, and us. We all loved her. She was there through the darkest days of my life. Supportive, gave me good advice, kicked my ass, etc., etc. I first bumped into Beth when she was at Milan, and she was a publicist there, and I was doing a radio show on Soundtracks, and we got to know each other, and there was kind of a kindred spirit. I remember Beth telling me her high point at Milan. You know what that was? Writing the press release for the Score album to Beavis and Butthead Do America in the style of Beavis and Butthead. That woman, I have never seen someone as happy as that. I also remember the day that Milan let her go, and she called me up from home. And she was crying, and she says, they let me go, I don't know what I'm gonna do, blah, blah, blah. And I just kind of said to her, well, why the fuck don't you just start your own company? And she stopped crying for a second and says, really? And I said, yeah, it's a good idea. And that was my minor contribution to putting her on the path she went on. After that, I remember 17 years ago today, hearing 9/11 and wondering, making sure that Beth was all right. And she was, except after that she couldn't breathe because of all the crap in the air that they said wasn't going to hurt. She eventually got over that problem when she moved to sunny Southern California. And I remember when she was making that decision, and all of a sudden there were people around her who thought it was a really good idea. As a matter of fact, John Burlingame's back there. I remember he was at a birthday party of mine, and I could see the two of them just like, and then lo and behold, she came out here. And I remember the first week she was out here, we had lunch at a restaurant which is no longer open, and then I saw the path she was on. And I am happy to say on this occasion that we are doing what is known as closure, as we are saying farewell to a friend. There are so many things I could say about her. We talked every day. I trusted her with my heart and my soul. She was on the list that if she needed to be bailed out of jail at 3 a.m., she had the number to call. And the other thing I want to say about Beth is that this is a woman who had another unique talent none of you have mentioned. She managed to make the art of wearing a cast, wearing crutches, a boot, whatever, into an acceptable fashion accessory. She did that all the time. The woman could walk down the street, I swear to God, and she would find the hole to step in. Good God. I often said to her that we need to design a wardrobe of bubble wrap clothing for her. Now, Beth and I had many wonderful discussions, whether it be about politics, movies, whatever. Why lesbians use strap-on? She never could get her idea around that. Yes, I know it's offensive, but what the hell? It was. By the way, just for the record, you two down there, your daughter brought it up, not me. Okay, so we do that now, and she would do all that, and then we can also talk about our many experiences with Beth when she would be at restaurants trying to find something she would eat because she was this vegan who wanted to take care of herself and exercise and all of that, and there are many stories we could tell about that. And also, the other thing we should tell about Beth, above all else, a wicked sense of humor. She could make puns even worse than Banning's down here, my business partner. She was a woman who enjoyed life. She and my other friend in New York who couldn't be here today, Didier Deutsch, I remember being in a car on a long drive with them incessantly, having them play punch buggy. I'm sure at the end of it, they both had bruises that could have been construed as spousal abuse. But here we are. All through this today, we have been talking about how she's touched our lives, how she enriched us, how she supported us, how she was a good and caring human being. And all of that is completely true. But you know what? The people she touched are better for it. Let's take, for an example, Javier and Greco. I got it right. Those two men I've seen come from where they started, in particular Greco, to where they are now. They put this event together for us to commemorate Beth. They did everything was necessary. And we sincerely hope you guys did clear her browser history, right? Nobody wants to see that after it. You did, right? Okay, good. And as we come here and I make up all of this as I go along, I will tell you this, and I mean this with all my heart. Beth Krakower was a sister to me, and I don't say that lightly. She was a sister from another mother. I could not have asked for a better friend to give me counsel, to tell me, you know, that's a really bad fucking idea. Don't do that. And other things. And I want to say to all of you, what can we do? After we're done here today, she will be gone, but live with us here. What can we do? Look at that smile over there. She would want us to try and be kind, do good work, and try and help others. Either it be just a good piece of advice, or mentoring someone if you are so inclined, or putting up with a crazy-ass friend like me who just would, anyone else would have garroted me years ago. Well, so many of you, but you haven't gotten a chance. But here's the thing. This is about closure today. I am full of rage and anger that she's not here. She should be here. And the circumstances of how that happened, I'm sure some of us already know, but if a certain doctor were to meet up and get a baseball bat upside the head, I'm sure I would give them an alibi. But that's just me, ladies and gentlemen. Our friend's gone, but she will live on. My sister is gone, but I am always going to remember her to the day I leave this mortal plane. And as I come to the end of this, I just want you all to think about this. Two things about Beth Krakower. Number one, that hair would change an awful lot over the years. And the color, I mean, good grief, what was it, chameleon? And the other thing is, you know how good a woman she was? Does anybody really know? Back in the 90s and into the 2000s, when many of her friends were getting married, she was such a good person that she would always be the bridesmaid in an increasingly hideous outfits. My God, those people didn't have taste. But she smiled and did it anyway. And fortunately, after all those friends were married, she said, not doing that again. And you know what? Do that for your friends. Wear the hideous costumes to the weddings, like I did once, and I looked like Don Vito Corleone. All right. In closing, I just want to say, be sad, yeah, I will be too, but you know what? She wouldn't want us. Go out, crack a bad joke, go make a bad pun, and most of all, just be a good person. And as Porky Pig would say, that's all, folks.
I want to say thank you all for coming, for performing. She would have loved this. She would have loved the music. She would have loved the speaking. For those who don't know, I've known Beth most of my life. Back when people called me Scott and people called her Bobo. I I didn't have anything when she invited me to come out to LA. She took a shot on me, and hopefully I've turned out all right. But if I have, it's mostly because of her, in some respects. In other respects, I'll always remember that she always knew the better way for me to do it, no matter what it was. So I'm sure she'll have notes. She always had notes. They were talking at the funeral that there are 10 types of angels, apparently. I didn't know that. An angel's purpose in life is to sing. 10 different tiers of angels. And the rabbi said that she would be there singing with them. And I thought, no, no, no. She'd be there trying to get the level 5 angel into the level 8 angels' parties. She'd be dealing with the level 7 angels, trying to get them into Heaven Reporter. She'd be negotiating on why we didn't get into more of the level 10 parties. And that's what she's doing right now. She lived her life her way, her life. She loved what she did. She loved the music. She loved each and every one of you. She loved me, and I love her. We're all going to move on. We're all going to step forward. I didn't particularly know what I was going to say, but I knew what Beth would want me to say. Stop crying. Don't worry about it. She's got it all figured out. She knew what she was doing. She could take care of it. And every one of you that called or she called, she's still there. She's still ready to help, to tell you what for, to tell you why you're messing up. And if immortality is never being forgotten and always being loved, then 46 or a million, Beth Bobo Krakower is forever, and she will be with all of us. She loved you, so I love you. Thank you very much for coming. Thank you very much attending. Thank you to the Krakower family. Thank you to Sabrina and Margot and Ford and Tyler and Bear and Jeff and Craig and Greg and everyone and Brianne. At the very least, she gets to see the Mets win a World Series, so that's pretty good. All right, now she'll want you all to get back to work and do what you love, because that's all she did. Have a good night, everybody.